Swaay.Health.
Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder of Swaay.Health, and we're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in healthcare marketing. And our guest today is Kate-Madonna Hindes Quast. She's Global Segment Marketing Manager at Bosch and Keenfinity. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to see you. I'm, like when you reached out and I was like, yeah, of course we're gonna have you on. I love
I
hearing
miss
your
everyone.
insights and perspectives.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, for those that don't know you, that have sadly not been at Swaay.Health and previous to that HitBic, where you were a common attendee, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, I am Kate-Madonna Hindes Quast. I've been in marketing by the way that all people go into marketing. I was a theology major, and decided I had to make some real money. And
Okay.
so I stepped into corporate America at Target and then ended up at the state of Minnesota and scooped up by the White House, Office of Public Affairs and Volunteerism. Mostly, I'm a confirmed data geek that loves to dig into the why of marketing. And healthcare gives me that intersection between I want to tell powerful stories that create connection and create buying signals, and I want to do it for people I believe in. I'm a multi-time cancer survivor. I'm almost to 10, which is really hard to believe.
Wow.
So I've had, breast and thyroid and everything in between skin. And it's super important to me that we make the world better and more equitable from a healthcare standpoint. So that's why I'm so proud of the work I've done in healthcare.
Yeah. I feel like there's some joke I'm missing between theology, White House, and now healthcare. Although, healthcare
Mhm.
seems to align. It's a meaningful area that has purpose and impacts people's lives in a big way. So that, and with your cancer story, that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting, you were working in healthcare marketing and you've been kind of testing the waters outside of healthcare. Talk to us about that experience and kind of the decision to leave healthcare and what it's been like being outside healthcare.
Absolutely. Well, I have a solid book of mergers and acquisitions where it seems like wherever I land, they get scooped up. Everything from little brands that I've worked with, healthcare startups, right? So apps, I've worked with Hey Kiddo and Miracle, which was a blast. And I got scooped up after my work with ClearSense going to Bosch and Keenfinity. And what I didn't know at the time when I joined Bosch was they were under acquisition. And I laughed my first couple of weeks. I said, of course I landed here. Of course I know what I'm doing. I know the landscape. And it's been really meaningful, powerful work where I get to be the voice behind the headsets at the NFL and SpaceX and Space Force and everywhere in between. So anytime there's broadcast news or the inauguration, those are my people in my headsets, and I'm very proud of it. And it's opened up a world that I hadn't been in for a while since my work with the White House Office of Public Affairs and volunteerism and a few product launches. My heart will forever live in and keep going back to healthcare because that has been so much of my life growing up and fighting cancer and keeping myself sane and safe.
Interesting. I mean, as a football fan, I want to talk how many headsets are broken each game. It just feels like if I were a coach, I'd be slamming it down so much. But no, I'm interested in hearing about the M&A stuff. Like, I
Mhm.
had a marketer reach out to me recently. Her organization had just acquired someone and they were going through that reorg, right? Like, okay, we have two
Mhm.
marketing teams. Do we need both? And kind of that
Yes.
rationalization. What's been your experience with that and how to navigate that the best way possible?
Ooh, I tell everybody it is holy, holy work. And every time I finish, I go, okay, I'm good. Never again. I get into heaven now. That's how this works, right?
It's a
Um,
battle, right? Over
it
territories and budgets and leadership.
it
And
is.
yeah, it's tough.
In every opportunity, there's a strength. I actually really believe that. And in this recent one, it's not been easy. And I think anybody who's been a part of this one will tell you that we've lost our leaders and there is new infused leadership that has this big vision for us, which is exciting and which is full of promise and opportunity. And it's also daunting to meet that level of, footwork and to run when we were felt like we were scraping by, right? I love one part of M&As because there's no bullshit. Hopefully I can say bullshit. But there's no BS allowed in M&As, right? You either prove your ROI and you know what you know, or you just have to get out. They don't have time for the in-betweens. Whether it's a venture capitalist firm or a partner that's coming in, M&As demand the best. And Larry Kaiser from my friends over at Optimum and former ClearSense will tell you, I'm one of those probably rare people that like the stress and thrive under pressure. I think it's been so much of my life. And so I'm used to, okay, well, I know how to work this. I know what to do. It lets me put on my ROI hat, which has saved me. But you don't get to be as creative because one of my favorite sayings is innovation and safety actually have to be in the same room. You can't have one without the other. You can't be innovative unless you know that you're going to land. You can't make a mistake unless you know that that mistake or that A/B testing is going to be okay. So innovation and safety are hand in hand, and sometimes in M&A that can't happen. So we have to build our own.
Mm. Yeah, it is interesting when
Mm-hmm.
an M&A happens, they usually want you to execute. It's like,
Yes.
hey, we have
Yes.
a scale up vision and you better go at it. And, I had one person tell me at one point, especially it was a private equity M&A acquisition, and she was very direct. She's like, they're all numbers. If you hit the numbers, they're happy. If you
Yes.
don't,
That's
then they
true.
don't. And I think that was even true with budget, right? Sometimes when it's
Mhm.
not private equity or other organizations, your budgets are just slashed and whatever, right? That becomes problematic. But with private equity, it's
Yes.
usually like, here's your blank check, but you better deliver the numbers that you're saying.
Mhm.
So I'll give you a blank check as long as you deliver the results because they're happy to spend as long as it creates the outcome that they want. So
100%. And if you write that use case, you better know exactly what's going to happen in that output, right? There's no failing in this use case. But it's a lot, M&As are actually a lot like healthcare right now, right? Not only does healthcare experiencing their own acquisitions, it seems like everybody's getting bought, right? Everybody's merging, but it's the same with everything happening in the current political landscape. Everybody's buckling down. So that dollar, that marketing dollar, that ROI spend has to stretch, I think, farther than ever before.
yeah, that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
What do you miss about being in healthcare marketing? What's
Oh,
you went to the other side. Is the grass
yeah,
greener? I don't know. What do you miss about healthcare?
the people. I miss the people. I miss the shared purpose. In healthcare, everyone is trying to make patients' lives better, right? We're product focused because product marketing is important. We need to know our target market and we need to know that we're saying the right things, we're making actionable words and outcomes from the marketing we're putting out there. We need to know that we can report on them. But the defining factor is the people at the events. I miss the hugs. I miss puppies. I miss Charles Boise. I miss Larry Kaiser. I miss you. And I miss having one shared vision. Like it didn't matter what organization I worked with, we were a part of the same team. And believe it or not, in the product technology world, it is not the same.
Hmm. Yeah, that is interesting.
Yes.
I've experienced it a little bit, right? Because you go to some of the massive, the
Mhm.
AWS, the Google Cloud, where it's
Yes.
multi-industry, and you're
Mhm.
like, doesn't feel the same, like sure,
Yes.
you find your healthcare people, and then it feels the same, and it's surprising when you bump into them, But yeah, that's interesting. Are there any lessons that you've learned, or what are some of the lessons you've learned, kind of being outside of healthcare, that you think healthcare marketing professionals should adopt? Like, what can we learn from these other industries?
That's a really great question. I think for me, it was dropping NQLs. I think I just wrote a piece about it recently that this whole idea of vanity stats of opens and clicks and everything, it actually doesn't matter when I'm going to SQLs in my product marketing matrix. I have learned to stop caring about the clicks. I've even learned to stop caring about Google Analytics. Yes, it's there. I always thought impressions were a little bit of like a pie in the sky. That's a pretty number that we think about. But for me, it was my job is to focus on SQLs and it's my job to focus on getting everything to an SQL. So I don't care about opens, I don't care about impressions. I care a little bit about bounce rate, things like that. But I am finding more and more is, am I speaking to the right person? Am I saying the right message? Am I eliciting action? Am I making them move in a way that I want them to move? And then asking why. So I think the big lesson that I've learned is a lot of MQLs in the process that we were taught, in the process that I was a professor, that I taught my kids in college was, oh, this doesn't really drive sales. It's a much longer sales cycle than we imagine right now with tariffs and everything else. So we have to stay focused on SQLs.
That's really interesting. It's funny you kind of like bounce rate. I've never understood the value of bounce rate generally,
Yeah.
but maybe you can educate me there. I've always ignored that. But I mean, the thing that I want to dig in a little. You said clicks don't matter, and the only refinement of that is I would say the wrong clicks don't matter, right? Like the right clicks matter, right? And it's how do you know what are the right clicks and what are the wrong? I think that's the challenge. But I think to your point, you shared with me, and maybe it was in the article that you wrote that I saw, you said activity isn't intent. And I think that's the core of
Yes.
what you're trying
It's
to
my
say, right?
favorite saying now. Yes.
Talk to me more about that. Like, what have you learned about that? And what does it mean for marketers? Like, how can they take this idea that like activity isn't an intent and then transition that so that the right activity is intent, which I think is what you're trying to say, but maybe I'm wrong. What do you
No,
think?
I think you're spot on. It's just, I'm going to take it a little farther. So, none of us like taking off our shoes at airports, right? And we all giggled at some of the things that we did in the pandemic, like we wiped down our groceries when they came in the house because we were so afraid, right?
Mhm.
And all of it is this little bit of theater. And to me, MQLs, if they're not tied to SQLs or a larger process, believe it or not, they're activity theater, they're marketing theater, right? They make us feel better. They make us feel like we're getting something done, and they give us great vanity stats. And smart leaders go, okay, but then what? Where I think young CEOs or young leaders go, okay, that's great. Tell me more. And so I have found so often in the world of healthcare, like time and trust are everything, right? And removing those when I get back to healthcare, which will be someday soon because I miss you all, removing that activity theater, I think is so important. I think as a patient, I've clicked on articles at 2 and 3 a.m. out of pure fear, right? And what did I do in the morning? I forgot about them. What do we do when we go to the airport? We take off our shoes, but really, it doesn't really make us any safer, right? This is all a type of theater. But for me, when I looked at those articles at 2 in the morning, I wasn't ready to book surgery. I just wanted to know more about it. And that didn't actually influence my buying decisions. It influenced my knowledge and my calmness, and it lowered my stress level, but it didn't give me buying intent. Same thing when we're in the airport and we take off our shoes or we do the silly things or we don't bring our large thing of lemon perfect water, which is delicious. But we bring something tiny, right? Because it's allowed. It's all theater. I think when activity doesn't equal intent, we take out curiosity and we put in actionable outcomes. I think true intent is when someone has a problem and a budget and a want and an urgency to solve it. Everything else is noise. Everything else is theater. And so if we are doing our due diligence as marketers and focusing on SQLs, the idea that activity is an intent can actually drive deeper engagement, better buying signals, and more qualified buyers. So we're not giving demos to people who really don't have the budget or they're in the wrong seat at the company. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've come to learn, understand, and train my team on.
It's interesting. The only thing I would try, and maybe playing a little devil's advocate here and pushing back because I think that makes for the
Mhm.
most interesting videos is healthcare is a committee buying decision. And
Mhm.
so you have the advocate that you need within the organization that has that intent to buy, to evaluate, to demo, et cetera, right? But then you have 7, 8, 9, 10, who knows, depending on the organization,
Yeah.
people who don't have the intent, but they need the awareness of your product. That if they've
Mhm.
never heard about it, they may ruin your person who has the intent. So that I don't know, how do you kind of balance those two? Because there is some important awareness that happens with
Mhm.
someone who has no intent, a CIO that, or a CISO that doesn't care about your product, but they're going to be in the meeting with your product person saying, I've never heard of them. They're not in healthcare. They're not secure. So how do you balance those two?
It's a great question. And that's where I think really strategic funneling comes in. I think as marketers, we tend to get way too excited. And I love passion as much as anyone else, but way too excited at that top of funnel activity, which is those immediate clicks and those views and those impressions. When we really look at our hard work, should get excited about bottom funnel activity. That's where MQLs turn into sales qualified leads, right? Marketing qualified leads is clicks and impressions and views on a YouTube video. And what CIOs really care about and what our leadership cares about is it going to get the job done? Is it within budget? And is it trusted? Is it secure? Those stats and that trust comes middle to lower funnel. And so I think that we should, as marketers, always look at awareness, but not put all of our activity, and excitement into awareness, because it should be in the middle and lower funnel to get that sale, to get that trust, and to get those referrals. Because we know more than anybody else in the healthcare world, the CIOs talk, and at these events and in emails, they're constantly referring, right? For good or for bad. And that's what happens down here, not up here.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
interesting. I mean, as I watch stuff and hear different people talking about it, you talked about that nice funnel. I hear more
Yes.
and more people talking about like that funnel is falling apart. Like that idea of like,
I know, I've heard that.
like I saw one that was like this is like my like
It's like a flywheel, right?
picture,
That's the new thing.
it's like that's
Yes.
the funnel. It's this random puzzle maze that we're on. Like, how do you feel about that? Like I agree with you on you can nurture someone through a
Mhm.
process. And I kind of agree with them that it's not this slick funnel that, hey, you finally clicked this or you finally asked for
Right.
a demo and now you're, like, I don't know. What's your view on kind of where the funnel's going and how is that going to impact marketers?
Well, marketers are always looking for the next new thing to convert, right? What can we do to shorten our sales cycle? What can we do to convert faster? Our goal is to get those dollars in the door and get those contracts signed. It is. And I think I used to teach on funnel versus flywheel 7 years ago,
Mhm.
forever ago. And it was a conversation even then. And this idea that human behavior only happens in a linear form. Start, sale, get them excited about the sale, close the sale. On paper, sounds perfect. It's how every sale goes. But we know in real life that's typically not how it goes, because a contract's going to open. We'll respond to an RFP and our funding's cut. We don't have NIH dollars. We don't have this source of funding that we had. So hold please. And now we're back to the awareness phase. Keep us top of mind. And so is the funnel oversimplified? Absolutely it is. But that's because I think human behavior isn't something that can be simple. And that's why, to me, it comes back to product marketing. Know your market, know their pain points, speak to them in human language that they can understand, nurture them, no matter if you get the sale or not. Because believe it or not, you should always be selling, right? And
And
then
they
you
might be a
close the
CIO
deal.
somewhere else in
A hundred
3
percent,
months.
100%. Yeah, we tend to love maps, don't we, in marketing, and we love analytics. I love data as much as the next person. But this comes down to human behavior and the fact that everyone wants to feel acknowledged and appreciated. And if we're doing that with our marketing in the right way with product marketing, it doesn't matter what tactic we take because we can't really go wrong.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, as I think about the alternative to this nice funnel, to me,
Mhm.
it's kind of what you just said, which is the people and like
Yes.
creating real connections with people. What
Mhm.
would you say are some of your ideas of how you create those real connections with people as opposed to, quite frankly, treating them like a number in a funnel, right? Like
I know,
that feels
right?
wrong, just saying it out loud, right?
I'll give a great example, actually. I love AI. I love AI when I can use it in a personalized way. And I will speak to the end of my days about how much I love Otter AI. I love Otter. I wrote a book with Otter. I've helped clients with Otter. I have done so much with Otter. And I recently canceled because I brought on a new tool. And for the sake of Otter, I'm not going to talk about the tool, but I will talk about Otter. I canceled about a month ago, and I had been an early user and an advanced user, and I had probably been with them forever, like forever, almost, oh gosh, over 5 years, and paid every month for their Super Pro plan, loved them. And when I canceled, I got the horrible pop-up, right? Of like, me? You don't want, you're breaking up with me? You don't want me? And I was like, okay, Otter, yeah, I
Do
don't
you
want
want a
you.
discount?
Sorry. Right? Do you want a discount? Why don't you love me? Like the jealous ex-girlfriend, right? It's
Uh,
embarrassing for them. And I really didn't think about it, right? Because they didn't resonate with me. They treated me like anybody else. They treated me like a number leaving. Today I got a message from them. And it was, hey, your time is important. I've done some research. I know what your job title is and everything. Can I give you $150 to answer this survey? And I want to actually have a call with you about the survey because I actually care enough to know why you left because you were with us for so long. And I went, Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You can have my time. It's about a half hour of my time. Don't care. I actually want to help you because you reached out to me personally. You acknowledged me and appreciated me. You didn't treat me like a number. One way that we use this at RTS and Telex, which is the brands that I'm in charge of at Bosch and Keenfinity, is you won't really see a lot of like thanks for sharing on our social media or anything like that. We really acknowledge people with their name, and sometimes we'll sign our name or we'll work something in like our engineer Sean says hi. He missed seeing you at the event last week. Something like that because our advocates are fanatics for our brand, especially for our headset brand, which is RTS and our communication matrices. They love them. And when engineers feel loved, they will talk to you to every other engineer out there. Engineers are a little bit like CIOs in that way, where once they feel that love, once they feel that trust, once they're acknowledged from a marketing standpoint, they can't stop talking about it. So those are two examples of how I think personalization and changing it. I don't think that way, right? It's not about a funnel, it's about human contact.
mm, yeah. It's funny. At the very first HitMech, we had a session that said it's not B2B, it's B2H. And he,
Oh,
business
yes.
to human,
To
right?
human.
And I
Mhm.
messaged him, I don't know, a year ago, maybe, and kind of called back to his message on that. He's like, yeah, now it's just H to H. He's like, it's
It's just
human to
H to
human.
H.
I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Although interestingly, you brought up the AI piece
Mhm.
of it. I'd love to hear that, as we kind of wrap up, like how are you approaching AI? How are you leveraging AI in your marketing efforts? What are you doing? What can other people learn from you about? I mean, I think we're all learning. So how are you using it?
So we instituted Copilot, which is Microsoft internally across the board. We have a lot of older salespeople who are like, I'm not going to touch that with a 45-foot pole. No, thank you. And I have found that in gaining trust and holding open sessions with them, not about AI, but weaving it into those sessions, it allowed me to start doing this week. We started our AI open roundtables. You come in, you join a Microsoft Teams, you ask a crazy question, I'll show you how to build a prompt. And so we're doing it company wide, not just for our sales team, but for everybody to use. And this idea where they can come and ask a question on their own terms has been so effective because they don't want another email, right? They don't want somebody telling them to what to do. They want to kind of explore it on their own. So as we brought in Copilot and developed the training materials for it from a company-wide perspective, marketing, HR, everything in between, we wanted to think differently and more strategically about how to make people connect with it because it's so out there for some of our staff. And that's been a really inclusive, cool way to do it. It's also lowered risk because we don't have people running out and talking about products that haven't even launched yet, which is the thing, on ChatGPT or others, right? And giving it away because they are crawling that and training on that. And so we were able to kind of control that conversation and very slowly and methodically send it out to the world in our own little community in a way where they had the hand holding if they wanted and the support, but they also had the freedom to try to understand it in a platform that was housed internally and didn't give anything away.
Wow. I mean, that's interesting to think about. We're going to have some sort of product release through ChatGPT accidentally at some point.
It's going to happen. It's going to
It's going to
happen.
happen, right? That's interesting. But it's funny that the way you describe it, it reminds me of the early days of social media I remember
Yes.
how many times people were like, yeah, it's our social media lunches. You can come and we give you a free lunch and we
Yes.
tell you about how to use Twitter and how to use LinkedIn or whatever. I was like, you kind of just did the same thing, right? But instead it's AI instead of social media. That's fascinating.
We talk all the time about how it is the launch of the computer. AI for our people internally seems like the launch of the computer was in the 90s. My dad was an executive at Northwest Airlines, and he used to bring home a computer, and we had AOL back in the day when like AOL was a big deal in the early
Yeah,
90s. And there were
very
chat
useful.
rooms and message boards. I was
Yeah,
obsessed with it.
same.
And my dad would be like, because he did facilities and management and he was a people person, right? Like he was brilliant at what he did. He negotiated contracts, but he was like, I don't know this. I could just type it out. My secretary will do it. But he learned to love the computer. My dad is a massive tech nerd now, but it's a little bit of it's an extension of who we are. It's like its own computer at our desk. We don't Google anymore. I very much ask Copilot, or on my personal device, I ask ChatGPT. And so we have to remember that not everybody is on the same wavelength as we are for social media. There, believe it or not, there are still people out there who are like, you're never going to get me on the tweeter. I want nothing to do with it. And that's okay, right? But if we
Yeah.
can get people excited about the future of tech, I think that's a really cool thing when it's tied to marketing and what we're launching in a safe, effective way.
Yeah. To me, the hardest part's the mindset. It's changing where you're pre-programmed to do something a certain way to say, oh wait, I should use AI. That's the hardest part.
Of course it is, because we've been Googling for half our lives now,
Yep.
right? And
And
it's
it works.
completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate, this was awesome. I love having you
Thank
on.
you.
Love learning
Thank you.
from
Thank
you.
you.
Uh, talking through some of these challenging topics. I think the Swaay.Health community is going to really enjoy this. So thanks so much for taking time to talk with us. And thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare marketing content like this, be sure to check it out at Swaay.Health. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.